Hello, guys. Welcome to our seventh, eighth, whatever podcast. We have a lot of topics to get into, mostly about the healthcare industry as well as healthcare. My name is Arseny.
I'm Cam.
No, Gustav.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So, discuss the healthcare industry. Anyone wants to start off with that? Start us off with
Yeah,
that?
Gustav, you want to start that? Or?
Um,
I can.
if one of you boys go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's in America, it's a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry. It's pretty impressive here in America. I come from free healthcare, so I don't see how much business you can get out of someone else's health, but you can down here. It's pretty crazy. Um, I know that it employs over 22 million people, and like it's crazy. And then I also saw another source that said it's 18% of the GDP of 2024 of the United States, which is crazy. But it's expensive. I know that. I mean, I think we all know that through our insurance that we have to have as international kids. Um, there's a lot of technology changing in the healthcare industry as well. So it's also a competitive market. But in my opinion, like overall in America, it's a business. Healthcare in America is strictly a business, and people can benefit off of, other people's health, which I think is a right to have. Is to, if you need healthcare, you should get it. But it's, especially here in America, it's a business, and it's, I think, pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, just going on to your points there. Yeah, it is a business. It is quite weird in my eyes how it works here. I'm used to a completely different system in Germany, and I just can't emphasize with the way healthcare works here in the States. But yeah, however, it's as you said, it's contributing massively to the GDP. It's 18% of the gross domestic product, which is insanely huge. Loads of people involved. It's creating loads of jobs, and just in general, lots of money. But as you mentioned as well, I personally think as well, healthcare should be a right or privilege to everyone, and therefore it needs to be accessible and can't be that expensive like it is right now in the States.
Yeah, I
So
also find it kind of weird how, like, if you have like, we signed up to an insurance when we went to Rollins, right? Some Medicare, I think it was it, or something. I'm not sure I remember the name, but like at the beginning, they said that we basically can't go to all of the health professions because some hospitals are supported by a different insurance, and that is just kind of just weird for me how like this insurance is for Medicare are like competing against each other when in reality I believe they should be instead like working together in order to provide a more sustainable and friendly system of healthcare towards the people instead of having like this ultra capitalist ultra competitive healthcare system which we have right now in the US. And yeah, that really just ties in how like healthcare in the US is more of a privilege, like Gustav said. Yeah, privilege.
Yeah, and I think that if we look at the U.S.'s healthcare, we can all agree like there's good parts and there's bad parts of it. But I know that, so I've done some research just in general because I had a lot of classes involved with healthcare, that the life expectancy has kind of declined in America in recent years, and that's from like chronic illnesses, obesity, drug overdoses, and a lot of people don't have the funds to get that help. Um, and I think that is also like crazy to me because I don't know, it's a business here, and like I already said that, and I think we've talked about that enough. But yeah,
yeah, I think it's also crazy like how much money is going into the healthcare sector and like how much funding there is, and the US is investing so much more than all the other countries. That's compared to Europe, and I think it's more than the European Union. and still like the mortality rates are decreasing. Yeah, so something must be going wrong.
Yeah, apparently in 2023, U.S. healthcare spending reached 4.9 trillion.
Trillion. So I
Trillion.
said $1 billion industry. It's $1 trillion.
Yeah, trillion. And it's 17.6% of the GDP.
Yep.
And as well as a 7.5 increase from the previous year.
Yeah, so like we look at that and it's, to me, like astounding that people can like really like put like what you were talking about, for example, with insurance. Like that's business. That's strictly business. That's like a competitive business of, oh well, my insurance is here with this, company of hospitals and this string of hospitals, and mine's with this. So if you have that healthcare, you can't go there. Like we're talking about, I don't know, Americans are very patriotic, and we're talking about like the lives of those Americans, and some people can't get that, and we're just gonna, go back and forth about money and insurance, and so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So our next topic is healthcare. I mean, a privilege, all right? We already kind of covered that. In the U.S., it's a privilege, but I guess in other countries, it's like a mix of both, right? Like Gustav, how is it like in Germany? Is it like more of a privilege, more of a right, or is it like a mix of both?
Well, there's both. So there's a private sector to it, and also there's a universal, like public. I don't know how to say it in insurance type of thing. Like it's just accessible to everyone, and it's income based, which means obviously um, people who earn no money, like they don't have to pay for it, and they still get the treatment, which I think is a good thing for the country in general. But somehow someone always has to pay for it, so there has to be found like middle, so that everyone at least pays whatever they can for it, and obviously the more wealthy people have to pay a premium price for it, which I think is okay. It's not ideal, but it's a better solution than here in the States where it's just
Oh
expensive for
yeah,
everyone.
go ahead.
And
What about in
yeah, also,
Canada?
also
What about in Canada?
Yeah,
oh yeah,
Canada's interesting. So it's all public healthcare. It's all free healthcare. The way you get free healthcare is you have to be a resident of Canada. So that means that you don't even have to be a citizen of Canada to get the healthcare. So you theoretically don't have to be paying taxes to get the healthcare, but that's how we pay it. It's through our taxes. And so it's a huge debate right now in Canada with healthcare because it's kind of like the same what you're saying, Gustav, except it translates through our taxes. So
yeah,
we have tax brackets in Canada, and so your like top 1% tax brackets are 55%. So if they make $1 million, they're not even walking home with $500,000.
yeah,
And like a lot of that goes to a few different things, but one of the main things is the healthcare in Canada because I can walk into any hospital and get like any service I need, and it won't cost me a dime, which also leads to backups and long lines because now people are going to the hospital because they fell and they might have a concussion.
yeah,
And it's like, why not go to the hospital? Because we can. Because we may as well get it checked out. Better be safe than sorry. So, like my opinion on like if it should be a privilege, it should be like accessible to everyone and a right. Like I think there needs to be a hybrid. And I mean, this is funny, Gustav. I've been to the hospital in Germany, and I went to a private hospital.
yeah,
And it was like so nice. It was a beautiful hospital. Like I didn't even feel like I was in a hospital when I was in the room. But I've been to a hospital in Germany, and like I didn't realize that it was private and public.
hmm
Like the people I was with were like, take them to the private one. And I think there should be a hybrid model for sure. I think a hybrid model works the best.
yeah,
We see, but right with America and Canada right next to each other, they're on both sides of the extremes when it comes to healthcare. And I think finding that middle ground, which I think there should be a public sector of health. But I also think that people that do earn money and work hard and put their lives at risk as well as another thing should also have their own private care. So I think it's really like distinguishing. That's all rules and regulation and policies of what that means. But I think it should always be a right. But I also think there should be an option for that more like upper type of thing. If there's a serious problem and you have the money and funds to support it and you care about your life or someone else's life, like you should have that option to have either one of those, you know?
Yeah, and also like having a completely public, healthcare system, I feel like that will just put on a lot of strain. Like, I'm not sure how it is in Canada, but I know that there's a lot of like immigrants, right, and big inflow in immigrants. And considering you said that people who are not of Canadian citizenship still get low cost healthcare, doesn't that like overload the hospitals?
Well, yeah. So like everything's packed. I mean,
Yeah.
I know like never to go to the hospital unless it's a serious problem. So it's like kind of like turned into there's both sides of it. Like people go for random reasons and like to be safe and sorry. And then there's people like me that are like, if I slice my finger open, it's a bad cut. I'm not going to go to the hospital and get stitches because I'm going to be there for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right. I also think it's interesting because, yeah, let's say people, you're at the bottom of the tax bracket of like the lower class tax bracket and you're paying, I think it's around below 20%. And then you're going into a hospital, but like you're paying for it, but you're not fully paying for it. And then also when it comes to the non-citizenship, which is a huge argument in Canada right now because we're a very welcoming country. We always welcome immigrants. We always welcome refugees. Is why should the question is like why should those groups of people that aren't of Canadian citizenship get our healthcare when they're not even paying taxes and they're living off already of our taxes, right? Part of our taxes, a lot of it is supporting like those refugees, those immigrants to get them on their feet, get them jobs, or even like just handing them a check. The government hands them checks. So like, and that all comes through our taxes, right? And then like then you have that, and you have healthcare on top of that for Canadian citizens. But next thing you know, the people that aren't Canadian citizens use a lot of that when they're already getting a sum of money from the government that's paid through our wallets. So I think our system's not. I don't think it works. I think there's a very, heartfelt place where it comes from of we want everyone to be healthy, but it doesn't work, and it just financially kills the upper class. And especially if you're not working overseas and you're doing all your business in Canada, and it makes that divide with the middle class kind of fade away, and it makes that upper and lower, and you don't really have that middle in effect.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. And like healthcare is a huge thing for us. But last thing I'll say is it's crazy to me, at least, that I mean I file taxes now. I have a job back home. Is like when I saw, obviously on my income tax and on my taxes, I'm theoretically low because I don't make a crazy amount of money, but I'm still getting taxed a pretty substantial amount. And right now, for example, for me, since I don't live in Canada, I don't have healthcare when I go home, but I'm a citizen. So it's like, but people that aren't citizens can have the healthcare, right? So it's difficult because I don't live in Canada for over, I think it's 9 months of the year. So I don't get healthcare when I go home.
But some random, never mind. I'm just not gonna go in that. But yeah, but overall, like I'd say, like just moving to the next topic, I think that Canadians have still overall better health outcomes compared to Americans. Like I have some data to say that um, Canada has a higher, life expectancy like of 82.3 years compared to 78.8 years for Americans. Infant mortality rate is also lower, and um, there's also better long-term health outcomes compared to the U.S., right? But I feel like this like problem between like infant mortality, it's not only because of the healthcare. It's about the lifestyle of people and the food that is served and like all of that. So it's really hard to um, hard to relate the overall health of, well, like a population and just say link it to the healthcare system itself. Like I think
Exactly.
it won't
I
be
don't
right.
think you can, and that's what I think. It's a culture thing, right? But you look at America and Canada, they're the two closest, I would say, cultures you can find. Like they're very similar. But there's still norms and things that happen down here that we just never see up there. For example, like fast food for us is not a problem because we're so regulated with what we can put in our food and what can come into Canada. Is that those fast foods are actually like no GMOs, can't be have anything red dye. For example, red 40, the dye is like illegal in Canada. Like there's stuff like that. So there's still like small culture changes that I think really like affect like the life expectancy and the well-being of citizens between America and Canada. When I compare those two, and even though our healthcare is like not the best and quite flawed, it does go back to the culture side. I think of, I mean, even how we were growing up, kind of, like you don't go to fast food like ever. Like I like, and that's not just my like personal thing. And that's not my parents. It's like everyone I know like had their first like Big Mac when they were like 15, 16, like when they're older, you know? So yeah, that's one thing. And then also I'd say the drug problem is also a very different type of drug problem in Canada because we also, part of our healthcare is um, using free injection sites, which I don't agree with, but we literally, if you have drugs, like we'll inject them for you to use so you won't die and we'll test them for fentanyl. And that's part of our healthcare. So it's like there's all these different factors of culture that are underlying, even though they look like the same on the outside. But yeah,
Gustav.
Yeah, I just think the overall health of the United States population is just so reliant on the consumption of the food and drinks and stuff like that. Like for example, when I walk into the supermarket back home in Germany, like there's always fresh vegetables and fruits, and like that's the main part of the supermarket. And here it's just like crazy amounts of sweets, sugars, snacks, and all sorts of fizzy drinks. Yeah, and I just see what the people are buying here, and I see what the people are buying back home. Like there's a huge difference. And yeah, obviously that's contributing to the health. People are getting obese, and therefore more prone to chronic diseases and stuff like that. And yeah, when the healthcare is that expensive, they have to like make it balance and buy the fast food, the processed food, which is much cheaper. So yeah, that's just
exactly. And like in America, though, it's like nothing's regulated in fast food either. Like that's the other thing.
yeah,
Everyone consumes fast food everywhere in the world now. We all know that it's a business and it's good, but like it's not regulated here. It's all
Yeah,
unregulated. I don't know if you've ever had, I don't know, McDonald's here compared to back home where you guys are from. For me,
yeah,
it's completely different. So
yeah,
different.
I've never had a McDonald's in the past 3 years.
Yeah. See, like it's completely different. Even like I don't know if you've ever had a Fanta, for example, here or back home.
Bro,
Completely
yeah,
different taste.
Fanta is horrible. Like I don't know what's the appeal of Fanta, bro. It just tastes like, okay, but that's just my opinion. But just saying, like this Fastos thing, if you think it's bad in the US, you should look at other countries like India or Brazil or these like poorer countries who like these fast food chains have expanded into, and they also don't have any regulations or infrastructure to support management of these, health of these, big chains. They have more influence than them, and they also don't have the healthcare system in order to, maintain all of the other healthcare aspects. So that leads to just more drastic effects on the population. I mean, on the health of the people. When talking about like fast food and all of that stuff, compared to the US. Um, like for example, I saw like this documentary that like in Brazil, like the mascot for like McDonald's or something. Like every child knows it now. Like so, like it's becoming like a staple in the culture. Like that's just how big the influence of these fast food giants are. and the obesity rate is also going up, and that is further affecting the health of many people.
Yeah.
So just moving on to the last topic, we have the Heineken case study as well as the drinking age of the USA, which is a very interesting topic that uh, they have chosen for us to talk about. But what do you think, guys think on the Heineken?
Yeah, just so to start off, I mean, we talked about a lot about the Heineken case study already in class. We had the presentation about it, and yeah, I just want to give a quick summary, which is I think it's good what they're doing. It's important. It's highly important for the long term success. Um, yeah, just integrating sustainability and the water conservation and um, carbon emission reduction and blah blah blah. All that stuff is really important for the planet, for the people, and I think all those big players um, need need to do something like that. Yeah, just in order to be competitive in the long term and don't trash our planet.
Yeah, I think you put it pretty well. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting, like the evergreen strategy and everything, and especially from a marketing side of it, it kind of shows that you're a company and you care, which I think is also really valuable. When you're a company that makes beer, like you wouldn't think that people you would recognize that, but Heineken does, and they have. So I think it's valuable. I think they hit a spot and they found it and they rolled with it. So I think it's good. I don't have much to say on it though. Yeah.
Yeah, I also found it interesting how they're using like technology in order to become more eco-friendly. They're using right now. I've seen this article saying that they've recently implemented generative AI in order to more efficiently brew beer, and which also like saves carbon emissions and the you know in the world in general. So I believe that it's really important for businesses and just every company in general to implement technology in a way that doesn't necessarily harm the environment, but rather improves it and helps it to become more sustainable for the future, right? Like like all of these sustainable things, they won't affect us as much in our lifetime, but like the next one or our grandchildren, well, it's gonna be way more significant. Like the actions that these big companies are doing right now. Yeah. So I think it's important to further also like promote these initiatives, like marketing, and get that out to the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a last topic, the drinking age in the U.S. and globally. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I mean, I come from a place where I'm legal to drink right now. Like Canada's 18 mostly everywhere, or 19 in some provinces. Um, I I think it's kind of crazy that it's 21 here, because you can go and fight for your country. I mean, you guys know what I'm gonna say, right? And all that stuff and whatever. But I also think it puts a kind of a stigma on alcohol when you have it set at such a high age that kids aren't able to kind of figure out what it is and how to use it properly. I mean, like, dude, my first drink was very young because it's like that in Canada. Like, I was buying my dad bottles of wine at the liquor store when I was 14. Like, you don't really have to like get ID'd or anything. It meant since I grew up around it, I wasn't scared of it. I wasn't like terrified. I was just able to like learn how to drink and deal with it myself and hold my own and know when to stop and all that stuff. So I think it's too high here. I don't know what you guys think, but yeah.
Yeah, I think pretty similar. Like in Germany, I was allowed to drink when I was 16. But also people started drinking potentially earlier because if you're on private property with your parents or whatever, you like it's gonna happen that you have a glass of wine or beer or whatever, as it's just, I don't know, part of the culture, I guess. But I also think it's a good thing, because at that age you're still getting educated by your parents, and they teach you how not to overreact and over drink, and just stick to a healthy amount. You're just growing up quicker. You know your limits quicker, and when you're going to college or even high school, because when you're 16 you're allowed to drink. You're not as, I don't know, you're kind of used to it already, so you're not doing as much crazy stuff, um, as you do when you drink for the first few times. Um, so I think it's 21 is kind of crazy, and it should get reduced to 18, because, as Cam said, as soon as you're 18, you're kind of an adult. So you should be able to take responsibility for your own and not get restricted by the government and not be able to drink. I mean, you're supposed to fight for the country, um, at the age of 18, I think. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me. However, what I do like about the states, parts about not being allowed to drink in public, because I see back home in the cities, like, people are throwing the bottles everywhere. The city gets trashed. You see people on the streets, like, proper drunk. It leads to all sorts of things. So I do like that part. But yeah, there's always negatives and positives to it.
Yeah, but like I myself, I'm not a drinker, but I still find it crazy how you cannot like drink in college. Like you should like when you turn 18, you go to college, you should just have like this special card you can drink. You know, I don't sure if you understand, but I also believe that limiting like this like forcing people to not be able to drink till they're 21 also creates like the incentive to make fake ID and to actually, you know, kind of just break the law like from them, like, and kind of creates more dangerous opportunities with like people like having the thrill of, you know, drinking when they're not exactly allowed to, you know. It I feel like it creates a whole set of different problems when you put the drinking age so high, you know. I don't believe that it really is beneficial overall in its impact and all. So, if you do, you guys have anything else to add? If so, we can.
No, I wouldn't say.
Okay, well then, thank you for listening to our podcast, and yeah, bye, guys.
See ya.
All right, thank you.